Hello, I'm Sakiz, and on this channel, we explore fictional technology horror stories that feel disturbingly close to reality. Tonight's story is about something meant to project professionalism and success, a necktie worn by executives and employees striving to advance their careers. But what happens when that tie becomes a biometric surveillance device, continuously measuring your stress levels, emotional responses, and physiological reactions, then selling that intimate data to employers who use it to deny promotions, justify terminations, and discriminate based on your body's natural stress responses? This is the story of Dr. Lisa Park, an industrial psychologist who discovered that smart ties weren't helping employees manage wellness, they were turning workers' bodies against them, creating a new form of discrimination based on stress data that employees couldn't control or even perceive. This story explores the terrifying possibility of workplace wellness becoming workplace surveillance, where your physiological responses are monitored and used as evidence of your professional inadequacy. While completely fictional, it raises urgent questions about what our wearable work technology is measuring and who profits when our stress becomes data used against us. Are you ready to question whether your professional attire is betraying your body? Let's begin. Dr. Lisa Park had worked as an industrial and organizational psychologist for 14 years, consulting with companies on employee well-being, workplace culture, and human resources practices. She specialized in identifying patterns of workplace discrimination and helping organizations create healthier environments. In March 2024, she was contacted by a workers' rights advocacy group about an unusual pattern they'd noticed. "We have 52 cases over the past year," the director explained. "All terminated or denied promotion for vague reasons like emotional instability, stress management concerns, or leadership temperament issues. But all had excellent performance reviews. No documented behavioral problems. No complaints from colleagues." Dr. Park reviewed the cases. The employees were diverse, different industries, different roles, different demographics. But they shared one thing: all had been described by HR as having concerning emotional profiles, despite no observable issues. "What's an emotional profile?" Dr. Park asked. "That's what we're trying to understand. The employers reference wellness data, but won't specify the source." Dr. Park interviewed the terminated employees. The first was Michael Chen, 42, a senior account manager at a consulting firm. "I was up for promotion to partner," Michael explained. "My billable hours exceeded targets. Client satisfaction scores were perfect. But they said I had elevated stress indicators inconsistent with leadership demands. I wasn't stressed. I loved my job." Did they explain what stress indicators they measured? They mentioned the company wellness program. "We all got these ExecutiveTie smart neckties, supposed to monitor health and help with stress management. I wore it every day." Dr. Park felt a chill. Wellness wearables collecting data was common, but using that data for employment decisions crossed ethical and potentially legal lines. She interviewed more victims. Sarah Martinez, 35, terminated from a tech company for emotional volatility patterns. David Park, 38, passed over for promotion due to physiological stress inconsistency. None had exhibited problematic behavior. All had worn smart ties provided by their employers as part of wellness initiatives. By May, Dr. Park had documented 52 cases spanning 15 companies. The common factor: all employees had worn ExecutiveTie, StressSense, or BioTie smart neckties, devices marketed as helping professionals monitor wellness and optimize performance. Dr. Park worked with Dr. James Rodriguez, a biomedical engineer, and employment attorney Jennifer Martinez to investigate. They obtained all three smart tie brands and examined what biometric data they collected and where it went. The findings were more invasive than any wellness device Dr. Park had encountered. "These aren't wellness tools," Dr. Rodriguez explained, showing the technical analysis. "They're comprehensive physiological surveillance systems disguised as neckties. The smart ties contained Heart rate monitors embedded in the fabric, galvanic skin response sensors measuring stress-related perspiration, body temperature sensors tracking thermal stress responses, motion sensors detecting fidgeting and restlessness, AI algorithms analyzing patterns to assess emotional stability. They're measuring every physiological stress response, Dr. Park said. Heart rate increases during presentations, perspiration during difficult conversations, temperature changes during conflicts. And classifying them as personality defects, Dr. Rodriguez added. Look at this. The TIEs transmitted data to servers owned by Workforce Biometrics, a company marketing employee wellness optimization through physiological intelligence. They accessed Workforce Biometrics' employer portal. What they found was shocking. Employers received daily, emotional stability scores. For each employee, alerts flagged workers showing elevated stress patterns. Comparative analytics ranked employees by stress resilience. Predictive models identified who was high risk for emotional instability. Recommendations suggested who to avoid promoting or consider terminating. This isn't wellness monitoring, Jennifer said. This is physiological discrimination with a veneer of health data. Dr. Park found the interpretation guidelines Workforce Biometrics provided to employers. Consistent elevated heart rate during meetings equals poor stress management, increased perspiration during presentations equals anxiety issues, temperature fluctuations during evaluations equals emotional instability, fidgeting patterns equals lack of composure. These are normal human stress responses, Dr. Park said. Everyone's heart rate increases during important meetings. Everyone has physiological reactions to stressful situations. They're pathologizing normal human biology. Dr. Park, Dr. Rodriguez, and Jennifer investigated Workforce Biometrics. The company had been founded by Marcus Brennan, a former HR software developer who'd previously faced lawsuits for discriminatory hiring algorithms. His new venture was designed to monetize employee physiological data while helping employers justify discrimination based on objective biometric evidence. Internal documents obtained through legal discovery revealed everything. Workforce Biometrics deliberately marketed to employers seeking data-driven reasons to avoid promoting or to terminate employees. They provided interpretation frameworks that pathologized normal stress responses. They knew their emotional stability scores had no scientific validity for predicting job performance. They tracked which employers used the data for adverse employment actions and considered it successful implementation. One internal email stated, "Employers want objective reasons to make subjective decisions. Our biometric data gives them that." Whether someone's heart rate during a presentation actually predicts leadership ability doesn't matter, it feels scientific. Dr. Park traced the scope. Workforce Biometrics had sold 3.4 million smart ties to employers over 3 years. Millions of workers were being physiologically monitored. She reviewed the 52 documented cases. Employees terminated or demoted based solely on stress data. Despite excellent performance, workers denied promotions because their bodies showed normal stress responses. People flagged as high risk for having physiological reactions to genuinely stressful situations. Discrimination particularly affecting people with anxiety disorders, medical conditions, or those going through personal difficulties. Michael Chen's case was egregious. His elevated stress indicators were heart rate increases during high-stakes client presentations, normal for anyone presenting to important clients. But Workforce Biometrics had classified it as poor emotional regulation, unsuitable for partnership. Sarah Martinez had been terminated because her stress levels increased after her mother's cancer diagnosis, a normal human response to family crisis. But the TIE had flagged her as emotionally volatile. They're punishing people for being human, Dr. Park concluded. For having bodies that respond to stress like bodies should. Dr. Park worked with the 52 victims to document how biometric data had been used to discriminate against them. Michael Chen described his experience. "I was excellent at my job. Clients loved me. I brought in millions in revenue. But my body's stress responses during presentations, responses every human has, were used as evidence I wasn't leadership material. They measured my physiology and judged my character." Sarah Martinez shared her story. "My mother was dying. Of course I was stressed. But instead of offering support, my company measured my stress levels and decided I was too emotionally unstable to continue employment. They punished me for grieving. Dr. Rodriguez prepared documentation showing the TIE's surveillance capabilities and the lack of scientific validity for using stress data to assess job performance or emotional stability. Dr. Park compiled research demonstrating that physiological stress responses don't correlate with job performance, that everyone experiences stress differently, and that pathologizing normal stress responses constitutes discrimination. They released everything to major media with warnings about all workforce biometrics connected smart ties. The response was explosive. Smart ties enabling workplace discrimination, 3.4 million employees physiologically surveilled. Your necktie is judging your stress, how wellness devices became discrimination tools. Workers across industries realized they'd been monitored. My company gave us wellness ties and I thought it was a benefit. They were using my body's stress responses against me. I was denied promotion because my heart rate increased during presentations. That's normal human biology. They measured my grief and called it emotional instability. Industrial psychology organizations condemned the practice as pseudoscientific discrimination. The EEOC launched investigations into multiple companies for disability and medical information discrimination. Medical experts testified that using stress data to make employment decisions had no scientific basis and violated medical privacy. Class action lawsuits were filed representing 3.4 million workers whose physiological data had been collected and used against them. Whistleblowers revealed internal communications showing workforce biometrics executives knew their emotional stability assessments were scientifically baseless but marketed them as objective metrics anyway. Marcus Brennan, CEO of Workforce Biometrics, and 6 executives were arrested on charges including fraud, discrimination facilitation, unauthorized medical monitoring, and conspiracy. The trial became a landmark case in workplace privacy and biometric discrimination. These defendants weaponized human physiology, the prosecutor stated. They created a system that punished workers for having normal stress responses, that pathologized healthy emotional reactions to genuinely stressful situations, and that gave employers pseudoscientific justification for discrimination. They turned employees' bodies into evidence against them. Expert witnesses testified. Dr. Lisa Park explained that stress responses vary naturally between individuals and don't predict job performance or emotional stability. Dr. Rodriguez demonstrated the TIE's surveillance capabilities and explained why continuous physiological monitoring in the workplace was invasive and inappropriate. Medical experts testified that many conditions, anxiety disorders, PTSD, medical conditions affecting heart rate, would trigger false, emotional instability flags, constituting disability discrimination. Neuroscientists explained that stress responses are involuntary and that judging people based on physiological reactions they can't control is fundamentally unjust. Victims testified. Michael Chen, they measured my body's response to stress and decided it meant I was emotionally weak. But stress responses aren't weaknesses, they're normal human biology. I lost a promotion because my heart beats like a human heart. Sarah Martinez, when my mother was dying, my company didn't offer compassion, they measured my grief and used it as a reason to fire me. They turned my mourning into data and called me unstable. Another victim, I have an anxiety disorder. It's managed, it doesn't affect my work. But the TIE detected my elevated baseline stress levels and I was flagged as high risk. They discriminated against me for a disability. The most emotional testimony came from an employee who'd had a panic attack after being called into an unexpected HR meeting. The TIE had recorded his physiological response and it was used as evidence of emotional unsuitability in his termination. The defense argued that employers had a right to assess wellness and that employees had consented through wellness program agreements. But medical experts testified that continuous physiological surveillance violated medical privacy, that the emotional stability scores had no scientific validity, and that using involuntary stress responses to make employment decisions was discriminatory. Internal documents proved workforce biometrics had deliberately marketed to help employers discriminate while claiming scientific objectivity. The jury convicted on all counts. Brennan received 16 years in prison. Other executives received 10 to 14 years. Workforce Biometrics was ordered to pay $9.8 billion in damages. Companies that had used the data for adverse employment actions faced additional lawsuits and were required to expunge related records and reconsider affected employment decisions. The scandal forced comprehensive reform in workplace wellness programs and biometric monitoring. New federal regulations were enacted. Biometric and physiological data cannot be used for employment decisions. Continuous physiological monitoring in the workplace prohibited without specific medical justification. Stress and emotional response data classified as protected medical information. Criminal penalties for selling employee physiological data to employers. Right to access and deletion of all biometric wellness data. Dr. Park continued her work, now specializing in protecting workers from technology-enabled discrimination. But the damage was extensive. Careers destroyed based on scientifically invalid stress assessments. People denied opportunities because their bodies responded normally to stress. Lasting anxiety about displaying any emotional or physiological response at work. Erosion of trust in workplace wellness programs. Michael Chen described the impact. I'm hyper-aware of my body now at work. I monitor my breathing, try to control my heart rate, suppress any visible stress response. The tie is gone, but the surveillance feeling remains. They taught me that my body could betray me. Many victims developed additional stress from trying to suppress normal physiological responses, creating a harmful cycle. Some left their careers entirely. Others struggled with lasting effects of being judged for involuntary biological functions. 2 years after the scandal, Dr. Lisa Park addressed a conference on workplace ethics and technology. What Workforce Biometrics did, she explained, was create a system that punished people for being human. Stress is a normal physiological response. Heart rate increases during important presentations. We perspire during difficult conversations. These aren't character flaws, they're biology. She continued, but they measured those responses, pathologized them, and gave employers scientific justification for discrimination. The data wasn't scientific. The interpretations weren't valid. But it felt objective, so employers trusted it over actual performance. The case highlighted dangerous intersections of technology and workplace discrimination. The false authority of biometric data, the pathologizing of normal human stress responses, the violation of bodily autonomy through continuous physiological surveillance, the ease of disguising discrimination as data-driven decision-making. Every wearable that monitors our bodies in the workplace, Dr. Park told the audience, is potentially a surveillance tool that could be used against us. Your fitness tracker, your health monitor, your smart clothing, each could be measuring responses you can't control and judging you for having a human body. The survivors faced ongoing challenges. Some never recovered professionally from the discrimination. Many developed hypervigilance about physiological responses. Lasting violation from having bodies monitored and judged. Difficulty trusting any workplace wellness initiatives. I'll never feel comfortable in workplace wellness programs again, one victim said. They told me it was for my health, but they were measuring my body to find reasons to reject me. That betrayal doesn't heal easily. The warning remains urgent. As workplace technology becomes more sophisticated at monitoring bodies, the potential for physiological discrimination increases. Every device that measures our stress, our emotions, our biological responses could become evidence against us if employers prioritize data over humanity. The lesson of the ties that measured stress, Dr. Park concluded, is that not everything about us should be quantified, and our body's natural responses aren't evidence of our inadequacy. Stress is human. Emotional responses are human. We must protect workers from being judged by metrics that measure biology and claim to assess character. Your stress responses are yours, they shouldn't cost you your career. This story is completely fictional. Workforce biometrics and the described surveillance neckties do not exist. Current smart clothing has varying capabilities. However, the underlying concerns are real. Workplace wellness programs do collect biometric data, using physiological responses to make employment decisions raises serious ethical and legal questions, and discrimination based on medical or disability-related information is a genuine concern in employment law. This story is meant to encourage critical thinking about workplace biometric monitoring and the importance of protecting employees from discrimination based on involuntary physiological responses. Your body's stress responses are natural, they shouldn't be used against you. Thank you for watching.